Today, I'm going to reveal your secret wealth guidance system that already exists within you and help you activate it so that you can follow your path to more wealth, abundance, and to break through your income ceiling. Let me tell you the truth, peeps. Your intuition is this guidance system. And when you tune into it, you are incredibly empowered to follow those beautiful paths to more wealth and abundance that are available only to you. If you stay till the end of today, I'm going to share with you some of my favorite techniques to engage with your intuition so that you can welcome in more. Hey guys. So did you know that you have a guidance system within you that will show you your unique path to wealth and abundance, that will show you the perfect path that is meant for you and your business and your finances and your life? But the problem is we've all turned it off, right? The secret wealth, guidance system is just your intuition. It's this knowing within you. It's this guidance system that says this way, this way, this way, and leads you down the path that's perfect for you. The problem is we've all disconnected from it. We've all told ourselves, oh, I don't have a gut instinct. I don't have this intuitive sense. I don't have this thing that other people have. Well, then it's bull. Each and every single one of us has intuition. Each and every single one of us has this knowing inside of us about what is right for us, about what is the right path for us, about what is the right strategy, technique, choice, opportunity, whether things are meant for us, what the aligned actions we need to take in our business are each day. The problem is in our society, we have been taught to disconnect from our intuition. I mean, don't get me on my soapbox, but I believe that this is a way that, the culture, our society basically is trying to disempower us on an individual level to not listen to what's inside of us and to listen instead to what somebody else is telling us as the truth. This is a problem I see in client after client that I work with. In over 20 years as a psychologist and as a coach and helping thousands of people rewire to new levels of wealth and abundance and success and impact, I can't tell you how many folks I see who have completely unplugged from their intuition, and they're constantly following the shoulds of what they should do. They're following the shoulds of the newest marketing technique. They're following the shoulds of the newest launch strategy. They're following the shoulds of this is what people say I'm supposed to be doing on social media. They're following the shoulds of this is what my life should look like. They're following the shoulds of this is what my schedule should look like. Shoot, this is even what I should be doing for a morning routine. How many shoulds are we all running from, right? I mean, running our lives from, running our businesses from. Those shoulds are the antithesis, the opposite of our intuition. Those shoulds are the opposite of us living in alignment with what is right for us. And we need to be able to tune into our intuition and our actions that are aligned and perfect for us in order to be able to have a life that's meant for us, to have a business that's meant for us. All of these things that we want usually at the base core of them all, the freedom to do things our own way, right? So if we're living constantly and making decisions constantly in our business from a this is what everybody's telling me should work, even though it feels like garbage, and I'm going to tune myself out, I'm going to turn down the volume on my inner knowing, what happens is that we are chronically disempowered, we are chronically disconnected, and we are chronically unable to create what it is that we want. The income to have the freedom to do whatever the heck we want, whenever the heck we want to do it, however the heck we want to do it. That's what creativity is. That's what joy is. That's what pleasure is. That's what having a life that you love is, having a business that you love is, having a business that feels like play, pleasure, and fun. All of that comes from empowering yourself to follow your intuition in your own unique path instead of constantly feeling as though there's one road through the woods, and if you don't take it, you're screwed. No, there's your right path. There's your right path through the woods. And to follow it, you need to empower yourself to listen to your own internal guidance system that shows you the way, that shows you how to get there, that shows you that this is my one right path, right? So, what the heck is intuition, first and foremost? Now, there's a lot of different aspects to intuition, and I'm not going to get too far into the science today, but there's basically a brain inside of your gut, inside of your stomach, inside of your innards that is giving you feedback. But, you've I think it's 100 billion freaking bacteria in your digestive system that is constantly giving you feedback about what's going on inside. So it's basically a second brain. And this complex neural network inside of your gut, physical gut, actually communicates constantly with your primary brain and communicates constantly with your body. That's aspect one. This is not metaphorical. This is literal. This is biological. So this gut actually processes information. It learns from experience. It sends crucial signals to your body. That's the first one. The second one is your subconscious mind, the part of your brain outside of your conscious awareness, is always taking in data. It's always taking in information that you're not aware of. Think about this for just a second. I want you to pay attention to your butt on the chair that you're sitting on. Bet you weren't aware of that a moment ago, right? You weren't aware of the fact that your butt was in contact with the seat. That's what I mean by you are constantly taking in data that you are not aware of, because your brain can only process your brain takes in something like 300 billion bits of information at any one second, at any one moment, but it can only process 3 billion or something, such a small, minuscule part of it. So I think it's even smaller than that. Don't quote me on those numbers. But the point is that your brain has to filter out all of these sensations, all of this information, and focus on just the things that it needs to pay attention to. Like if you were walking through the forest, in evolutionary times, and you were like, squirrel, you wouldn't be able to see the lion, or you wouldn't be able to see the berries that you need to feed your baby. You need to be able to focus on what it is that you're focused on, right? That can be incredibly powerful in terms of setting intentions and in terms of goal setting and all of that stuff. And it can also be incredibly powerful because that means that there's a lot of data that we're taking in that's outside of our conscious awareness that you don't have access to it necessarily. It's not as though you're going to sit there and categorize how many blades of grass you saw, but you might be able to know that it's spring because suddenly you're seeing more grass without even being consciously aware of the fact that the grass is growing. This is that subconscious data that's constantly uploading into your brain and giving you basically feedback on your decision making. There was a study done once about F1 drivers, right? Going down a street racing track. And they were about to go around a blind corner, and there was a crash right around the corner. And they found that the drivers somehow avoided this crash around the corner and knew to avoid it, even though they couldn't see it. And even though it meant driving in a place they shouldn't have been driving on, right? They actually slowed down the coverage from the race, and they evaluated how did the drivers figure this out when they couldn't see it. They couldn't have known the information. How did they do this? What happened was the crowd around that corner was all looking in the other direction. They were all looking at the crash. The drivers were not consciously picking up on the fact that the crowd was looking in the other direction. They were focused on driving and not crashing and steering the freaking car and the accelerator and the brake and all that crap. But on a subconscious level outside of their awareness, they picked up on it. And that gave them the data to allow them to avoid the crash around the corner. And this is what I mean by we constantly have access to this subconscious data file that we're not even aware of. That's the second piece when it comes to our intuition. Our third piece that's really, really important to understand here is that basically, I don't know about you, but I'm a spiritual person, and I believe that we're all part of the same fabric. We're all part of the same, everything is, everything on a scientific level, everything came from the Big Bang, right? Everything came from a single spark of life, which means everything is part of the same thing. Whether or not you believe in God, the universe, or nothing, or just the Big Bang, I guess it doesn't really matter. The point is that if you think about everything's part of the same fabric, that means everything is connected, which means that there is a level of energetic connection between everything, which we have access to on some level, even if it's just an energetic level, that gives us access to extra information that may not be something that makes sense, that may not be something that we can consciously become aware of, right? The point is that this intuition is a form of unconscious intelligence within each and every one of us. And that, they've shown that surgeons are able to make life or death emergency decisions, that early stage investors can decide how to allocate millions of dollars. Steve Jobs talked about how intuition was a huge thing in his creation of, Apple and basically rebooting the whole company. That gut feeling, that intuition is what inspires us to make those choices, which other people might think are crazy, which other people might not understand, which are unique to us in our path. And so when we can empower ourselves to actually follow that, what happens is that we become empowered to create things in the way that is perfectly natural for us, because we are allowing ourselves to have access to all of this stuff. Now, the problem is that we become disconnected from this due to things like our nervous system being dysregulated, due to things like trauma from the past, due to being told that we can't trust ourselves, or intuition's stupid, or that's a dumb idea by people close to us, or by chronic stress, or all of these things. And the truth is with nervous system regulation, for example, if you think about the first point I made, that it starts in your gut, we lose access to our digestion when we're in a chronic state of fight or flight, freeze or fawn, when we're in that chronic nervous system dysregulation, which means we lose access to that gut instinct as well. Traumas can disrupt this. Messages from the past, watching our parents struggle with money, experiencing past business failures, or even societal messaging about wealth. It creates interference patterns, it creates static in our connection with our intuition. We override feelings because we're taught in our society that it's not a good idea. You have to be smart and look at the data and be logical. We don't connect to our emotions. We're all completely disconnected from our emotions. Not all of us, but many people are taught to disconnect from their emotions, that their emotions are dangerous. But your emotions are where that intuition lives. You have to know how you feel to know whether or not something feels right or not. We're disconnected from our feelings in our body as well, which is the other place that our intuition lives. It's the other feedback loop that's constantly trying to give us messages on whether or not we're on the right path or whether or not something is meant for us. So there are 3 different kinds of disconnection types, and I'm curious about which one of these that you spot yourself in. The first one is the analyzer. This is the person who experiences a gut feeling, but then immediately dismisses them as irrational and, just pushes them out of the way. The second one is the freeze response. This is the person who gets overwhelmed by their gut sensations. They get overwhelmed by these feelings. They get overwhelmed, and so they numb them out. They try to ignore them. They try to turn down the volume. Maybe they go into old coping mechanisms like a glass of wine or something like that. Something doesn't feel right. I'm going to have a glass of wine or a cheeseburger or whatever works for you. The third one is a signal scrambler. The signal scrambler basically doesn't know how to differentiate between fear and intuition. They don't know their emotional landscape. They don't know their physiological landscape because they've been ignoring the way they feel for so long that it all becomes a mushmash. It all becomes scrambled, and they're not able to basically differentiate these signals. Now, there are definite physiological differences between fear and intuition. One feels anxious and edgy and like spiky, and the other one feels grounded and comfortable and repeatable and calm. When you can empower yourself to understand the difference between those, when you can really connect with what's going on inside of you emotionally, physically, you basically empower yourself to have connection to this whole other, basically guidance system within you that is always showing you the right path for you and your business. That's always showing you the right path to build more wealth and abundance. And this is something I talk to every single one of my clients about, is following their intuition, following their internal guidance system, following what feels good, following what feels right. and trusting yourself along the way. So now a couple of little reconnection practices that you can begin to utilize immediately. The first one is seeing your body. How does it feel? How does it actually feel, the thing that you're thinking about? Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? Is it giving you a stomach ache? Is it feeling like this is delicious? Start to actually feel how your body feels when you are tuning into whether or not something is right for you. The second thing you can do is you can actually step into asking yourself one of two different options. Embodying this decision, like let's say, I don't know, starting a podcast versus writing a book. If I imagine myself doing a podcast, how does it feel? If I imagine myself writing a book, how does it feel? How does it feel in my body? How does it feel emotionally? How does it feel? How does it feel if I've made decision A? And how does it feel if I've made decision B? And then rooting into, is this fear or intuition? Does this feel spiky and anxious and tight? Or does this feel relaxed and good and juicy and delightful? These very, very quick check-ins will begin to allow you to tune into your intuition. Now, I teach my clients, some deeper levels of intuitive guidance in terms of tuning into their intuition that allow them to really anchor into their yes or no so that they can actually hear this clear guidance and follow it in their business and in their capacity to build wealth. But these three things will get you started. And I'd love to hear which one was most powerful for you and which one has allowed you to connect with this intelligence inside of you, this guidance system that's inside of you that you've always had access to, but you just haven't been listening to.